My first memories with cell phones are with Nokias. At the time, not much was done with the cell phone because I myself never had any credit on it. At most, I made a collect call. If not, it was playing Snake with friends in the schoolyard. Even so, it was fun to have an innovative piece of technology in my hands, and imagining what the future held was very difficult. But one thing was unanimous: Nokia would be there. In the late 90s, Nokia became the world's largest cell phone manufacturer and in an extraordinary turnaround surpassed giants like Motorola and remained on top for 14 years. At its peak, it was responsible for almost 50% of all cell phones sold in the world. And with its models that marked an era, it holds the record for the best-selling cell phone of all time. Although today it is synonymous with outdated technology, Nokia was one of the most innovative companies of its time, and one of the only ones that contributed the most to the industry. It worked on the development of GSM technology and created SMS, made the mobile phone a personal and indispensable item, something unprecedented until then, and paved the way for companies like Apple and Samsung to inaugurate the era of smartphones. In 2013, Nokia was sold to Microsoft, and later its name was removed from Microsoft cell phones. The mobile division at Microsoft was closed, and we never heard the classic ringtone that for more than a decade was part of the soundtrack of most of us. Many blame the launch of the iPhone in 2007 and the Finnish company's inability to adapt to the new scenario for the tragic outcome of the giant. But the truth is that Nokia did not go bankrupt, and its decline, to put it better, began long before the iPhone was launched. But how could a company that dictated the rules of the game and reigned supreme for more than a decade simply be wiped off the map? Is it really true that the launch of a single device, no matter how innovative it was able to knock out the market leader with a single blow? That's what we will find out today. Nokia was born a Finnish paper manufacturer. Over the years, the company expanded, operating in various different sectors, from rubber to electrical cables. In 1967, Nokia Corporation was founded. But it was only in the early 1980s that they decided to take a risk and enter the telecommunications industry, joining forces with Salora, a television company. Together, they launched the Mobira line of phones. The Nokia-Salora alliance proved successful, and they released several portable phones onto the market, including the Mobira Talkman, used inside cars, and the Mobira Cityman, or Gorba, which could be taken anywhere. Thus, the brick phones soon became one of the most iconic symbols of the 80s, like the Rubik's Cube and the Game Boy. This was a time when the idea of a cell phone simply did not exist. During the 80s and 90s, Nokia invested heavily in the research and development of mobile phones, long before the companies we know today. But being a Finnish company, Nokia had very different practices from American companies, for example. To give you an idea, they did not patent much of what they created. For them, any innovation should not be monopolized, but shared. Very different from what some American companies thought. That's how in the late 80s, Nokia suffered its first blow. By rapidly expanding beyond the borders of its home country, Nokia was sued by Motorola in the United States, alleging that they infringed on their patents, some of the biggest legal battles involving Nokia at the time. The patents initially belonged to Nokia, but they have never been registered. In the late 80s and early 90s, Nokia faced serious financial difficulties. Jorma Ollila was then chosen to take over as the new CEO, displeasing many shareholders for being too young. He was 42 years old at the time. But it was under Ollila's administration that Nokia truly became Nokia. It was he who redirected all of the company's efforts towards the mobile phone industry, betting that this would be the product of the future. Decisions like the acquisition of Technophone, an English startup that developed pocket phones in the early 90s when the mobile phone market was still in its infancy, gave Nokia a huge advantage over the competition. By the mid-90s, Nokia's mobile phone production could no longer meet demand. Between 1996 and 2001, the company's revenue increased from 6.5 to 31 billion euros. From 1998 to 2012, Nokia was the world's largest cell phone manufacturer. In 2000, it had a 30% market share, almost twice of its main competitor Motorola. At its peak, it was responsible for almost 50% of all cell phones sold worldwide. This remained the case until the arrival of the Motorola Razr V3 in 2004, which was a sales success. The device changed the concept of the Motorola brand and what the cell phone was, going from a simple functional device to a status symbol with flashy colors and flip design. Motorola already had flip phones before, like the StarTAC and the V60, which were also considered status models, but on a smaller scale. I myself noticed a behavior change in consumers at the time, who would not simply buy a functional phone, but rather something that made them feel special and different. And for me, it was the beginning of the end for Nokia's functional devices. In an interview with the BBC in December 2000, Olila said, "In the world of cell phones, the best is yet to come. The opportunities in the future are enormous as we enter an unprecedented era in which mobility, internet, digital media and other content can be combined and made available to virtually everyone, anytime and anywhere." Lila's vision does not seem that of a leader whose company was about to collapse less than a decade later with the arrival of smartphones. If you do a quick search, you'll probably come to the conclusion that Nokia went bankrupt because it couldn't keep up with market changes, especially with the launch of the iPhone followed by Androids, which simply terrorized the industry and changed everything everyone knew about cell phones in a short period of time. But two things need to be clarified here. The first is that Nokia didn't go bankrupt, it was sold to Microsoft. And the second is that Nokia wasn't an oblivious, outdated company that collapsed due to sheer incompetence, because it simply refused to accept that its competitors had created better products than theirs. What happened was that the Nokia of the early 2000s was no longer the Nokia of the 90s. The Nokia of the 90s, which innovated under good leadership, such as that of Jorma Ollila, who knew how to direct and redirect its efforts towards what would really be the next big thing, who coordinated an extremely complicated logistics chain for the time, and who launched one success after another, always thinking about the quality of its products, simply no longer existed. It is important to remember that at the time, every Nokia release was indeed innovative. They gave cell phone colors, covers, cameras, keyboards, everything that today sounds cheesy, but that wasn't at the time. After years of spectacular growth, Nokia became a very rich company, and almost everyone who worked there did too. The Nokia of the 90s became the gold mine for 2000 investors and the perfect place to work, which paradoxically attracted many people who simply didn't care about Nokia's real vision and only cared about how much they would earn at the end of the month. The decline of Nokia is seen as a series of wrong decisions, especially in relation to not keeping up with technological changes, such as not letting go of the Symbian operating system developed by Nokia itself instead of migrating to Android, for example. But if we look closely, we realize that Nokia's big problem wasn't necessarily the iPhone, Android, Symbian, or the lack of technological innovation, but the fact that the old Nokia simply no longer existed. That is, Nokia's problem was Nokia itself. With successive changes of CEO, Nokia became an increasingly bureaucratic, slow, and inefficient company, the opposite path that technology companies usually take. As Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, pointed out in a 2013 interview with Business Week, Nokia's internal bureaucracy inhibited the efficient development of software. The fact is that Nokia would fall at the slightest sign of a heavyweight competitor, be it the iPhone or any other. And if nothing changed, it was just a matter of time. Stephen Elop, a former Microsoft employee, personified the end of Nokia and is considered by many to be a kind of a Trojan horse. During the 2 years he was CEO, Elop was responsible for a 62% drop in the company's shares, accumulated losses equivalent to almost 5 billion euros, and saw the company's smartphone market share plummet from 33% to 3%. All of this in less than 5 years. With his infamous speech about the company being on a burning platform with no way out, simply doomed to end, he initiated the end. Contrary to what many think, when the iPhone was launched in 2007, Nokia recorded one of its most profitable years since 1999, over 50 billion euros. And even with the successive launches of Apple and Samsung, Nokia still made good profits. But in 2013, when the company was sold to Microsoft, its revenue dropped from 30 to 12 billion euros, a drop of about 60% in total revenue. Some say that the choice of Elop as CEO was strategic, not by Nokia, but by Microsoft. Elop was a former Microsoft employee when he was appointed CEO of Nokia, and in about 2 years he gave up on the company, stating that there was no turning back and that the best thing to do was to jump ship and sell the company while there was still time. In 2013, Nokia was officially sold to Microsoft for 5.4 billion euros, and soon the Nokia Lumia devices hit the market. Lumia was a big failure worldwide. Microsoft thought it was enough to use the same operating system as their computers on phones, and that would be it. But it didn't work very well, and the phones launched under the Nokia-Microsoft partnership soon disappeared. Not only did the phones disappear, but Microsoft also took the Nokia name out of the game and then disappeared as well. A total failure. Some Finnish startups have been founded by former Nokia employees. A 2015 BBC article called them Finnish Phoenixes. Moving forward a little bit in time, we can see that some of them have indeed made significant progress, such as HMD Global, which has seen the sales of its smartphones grow, albeit timidly. More recently, in mid-2020, Nokia returned to selling phones with a 2.3 model, which this time will have Android One operating system, and Motorola launched a new version of the Razr V3. But will we see the return of Nokia? Or is it just a nostalgic attempt to revive golden times that will never come back? What do you think about Nokia and their cell phones? Leave a comment below. Also, if you like this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy this other one that's on screen right now. In it, we talk about the Panama Canal and how its construction was a great work of world engineering. So click on it and I'll see you there. That's it for this video. Bye bye!